My students at this point say, yeah, but the gap between the rich and poor is just increasing. So it's increasing. Yes, they say. The gap is increasing very much. So let's display it then, I said. We take this axis and we take only economy now. Dollars per capita based on household surveys of representative samples of people in the world. And the one we have used here is Yuri Dikhanov from the World Bank. It's some years back, but you know these surveys are made with so many years interval, so they can't be updated very easily. So I would like to see now, are there a gap between the rich and the poor? That person obviously earns $10. And then we ask the other one to come down. And can please the whole world population come down. Here they come, you can see. And they land on their daily income, and what happens? What happens? You get the distribution of incomes in the world. And there is a hump. There's a clear hump. There's a mark from the colonial period. But it's being filled. And there are people living of all sorts of income. Of course I made the logarithmic scale here because the room is too short for a linear scale. There's such an enormous difference in incomes. And the Swedish students always get surprised when I told them that they live here on the sunny side of the small hill. That's the Swedish government's student allowances puts them here. And the difficulty in this world is, how can we teach that the difference between the richest and the poorest here is bigger than ever? And it's appalling and it's tragic. At the same time, the middle is moving. Or at least they were until we had this food and financial crisis. At the present, we are at a loss really to see what is happening. We are modeling, you are estimating, you know, but we are very worried that there is a major backlash at present. But the money in the world, and this is now about 2,000 estimate, the daily income is that, if that coin represents 100% of the daily income in the world, it divides like this. The 20% richest, they get 74%. And the 20% poorest get 20%. They get 2%. And you have a quarter of the world economy in the emerging economy, the middle income countries. And before the financial crisis, this is where we had the growth. And if you find growth anywhere in the world this year, you'll find it here. Especially in China. May still be growing this year, their economy. Definitely you don't find it here. And I found, at least in Sweden, it's like the aid, the development aid blurs the ability of understanding the world. The argument, you read Jeff Sachs, but you don't understand him. Students don't understand. They say that the rich should give more to the poor. And then actually the Swedish development aid goes nearly entirely from Sweden living here to the low income section. Whereas the middle 3 billion people, they take care of themselves. They don't give aid, they don't get aid. And this is my whole problem, is to explain that we have 1 to 2 billion people in hunger and in really severe deprivation. We have 3 billion moving forward in different speeds. But this is a snapshot. Would we see what is really happening on this line, we would see that hundreds of millions is getting out of poverty and about the same amount is falling back every year. It's an enormous movement at individual level over this line. And it seems that health catastrophes in the family is the main reason why you fall back. It's not that a stagnant group of 1.5 billion living here. So even those who have a decent life here during 7 years may fall back into deep poverty for 1 or 2 years and then they get out again. So we are thinking about a way where we could show these currents as a sort of a back current, like in a river. It's very difficult to get really out of poverty. And where you have welfare starts somewhere here. Whether it's welfare in a private insurance system or it is in a public insurance system, that doesn't make so much money, but you need $10 per person per day, about $5,000 to $10,000 per capita per year to make a decent welfare state. Otherwise, you can't do it. And I think the concept of calling everything from here and onwards developing world, that really hampers understanding. And we we try to see here how the different continents look. This is Africa. The distribution of Africa, you see a large part of the population is below poverty line, but then people are here. Yesterday I met Mo Ibrahim at the Philanthropy Forum here. The Sudanese entrepreneur who started the mobile telephone company and sold it to Orange, earned 3 billion and created the Mo Ibrahim Foundation for African Leadership. He earned his money here. And this is the OECD. OECD, for those of you who are young, it is the country club of the United Nations. It's very unclear how you get membership, and they have a nice clubhouse in Paris, and they have great economists, statisticians who use that at a high professional level, but it's an unclear organization in the modern world, what they should do. And there's an overlap between Africa and the OECD countries. Mexico is a member of OECD, for instance. Poland has just joined. South Korea has joined. Singapore is so wise, so they stay outside. Kuwait is not a member, and so on. This is Latin America. It's a green anaconda. It contains everything in this world. If we have a visitor from outer space who would like to see the world and only have one day, we'll send them to Latin America. It's a representative part. We have extreme skill, very successful companies, you know, great talent in Latin America. At the same time, in another end, in some countries, we have deprivation and deep poverty. And most of the people in Latin America are average inhabitants of the modern world. And this is East Europe, very similar now, the former Soviet Empire, to Latin America. This is East Asia, with China and Southeast Asia. This is South Asia with India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. And this is how the world looked like 2000. And now we go back to the year when I studied public health in Bangalore, in southern India, as a young student. Then the world looked like this. Most people in poverty were Chinese or Indians. And I remember the shocking experience of coming to a rural village just 10 kilometers outside Bangalore and see deep poverty for the first time in my life. It was really a shocking experience. And there were women with 6 children, just as the student had glued on the wall. Those images I saw there. You know? And we worked in primary health care during that course, which I took there. And this is what happened. The population grew, and hundreds of millions and billions came out of poverty like this. Some slipped back there. And if we use the line up here, we can see that the projection was like, no one dared to do projection after Lehman Brothers, isn't it? We have to stop there. Or perhaps I should go back before the food crisis. Somewhere here the projections are. But the most important thing is that if you look at this, we have more or less, it seems, the same amount of people in poverty. But the proportion in poverty is clearly diminishing in the world. But these are unsecure. For those of you who have done field service, you know how extremely difficult it is to interview about family economy at this level. And I'm still to see an uncertainty range of estimates of economic level of people just above, at the poverty line or under it. I think we have to give poverty data with uncertainty range to make them credible. Now, we can do this in another way. Did I do this right now? Same income, different health. Here I have GDP per capita on this axis, not family income any longer. And here I have child survival. It's health. Good health is up, bad health is down. It's the percent of children surviving. We are struggling with how to display child mortality. Actually, life expectancy we measure, the bigger the number, the better the health. Child mortality, the lower the number, the better the health. So we try to convert it. So 99.7% surviving, it means 3 per 1,000 die. 70% surviving means 300 per 1,000 die. This is Africa. The size is the population. This is South Asia. This is Arab world. This is East Europe, Latin America, East Asia, and OECD. And my students shout and say, we told you there is a gap, they said. There's a gap. There's a gap between the rich and the poor. But look what I'm doing. I'm hatching Africa, and I'm splitting into country bubbles. You see diversity within Sub-Saharan Africa. One of my friends, an African scholar, told me a decade ago, I'm dreaming about the day when people stop talking about Africa. And then you don't ask, how is Europe? And you put Russia, Sweden, and Spain in the same basket. We have to start discussing countries. Because just even a country has such a diversity within. The generalization across Sub-Saharan Africa is one of the main obstacles in understanding, I would say. So you find Sierra Leone down there, Mauritius up there, Ghana is there, Uganda is there, South Africa is there. This is Equatorial Guinea. The president's family keeps all the money from the oil, you know. The most unjust country in the world at present. If I split South Asia in the same way, the big bubble will be India, and down below the African goes Afghanistan, and up there Sri Lanka. Remember Sri Lanka from the chimp test? Yeah? You know, you have grandmother can read, you know, it's flying there on its social development, you know. And here goes the Arab countries. They have the same culture, religion, and climate. They should be the same. And they are so different. There's 1 hour's flight from Sana to Abu Dhabi. And it's a world apart on the Arabian Peninsula. So neither can we talk about the Western world and the developing world, nor can we talk about continents. This is how Arab states is. This is how Africa is. I split East Asia and Pacific, Southeast Asia. China in the middle, down with the Africans, Cambodia, up there Singapore. And here, Central and Eastern Europe, the former Soviet Empire. Such a big difference. Tajikistan with the African countries, the poor African countries, Slovenia up there. Member of OECD now from this year. Latin America then, well, not so much difference between countries, because the curse of Latin American societies is that the inequities is within the countries. So most of the Latin American countries carry the inequity within their own country. And you don't have to go to Cuba any longer to find a low child mortality or high survival. Chile is catching up with Cuba almost this year. Also catching up with Washington, D.C. You know that Chile has now a lower child mortality than Washington, D.C. It surprises us at the outside. Now, the OECD countries are like this. Any way you count, United States is richer than Sweden, but we have a better child survival. Actually, an African immigrant from war situation in Sweden, we have about 45 to 60,000 Africans living in Sweden, recently immigrants. They have a third of the child mortality of the black in this city. There's really difference in health system and in allocation of resources when you have similar money. But there is no way we can catch up with US in economy until this year. Maybe. We also have problems. We are losing Saab and Volvo. And here we are. No gaps any longer. A continuous work. I have a neighbor who knows 200 types of wine. You may have friends who are like that, or you may be one of them. They know the name of the grape, the temperature, when it's harvested, you know, what you should eat it with. They know all the things, about 200 types of wine. I only know 2 types of wine, red and white. I've never had the need to know anything. I'm just not interested in wines. And whereas my neighbor only knows 2 types of countries, Western and developing. And I know 200 types of countries. Give me a country, I'll tell you the child mortality, the GDP, just a little. But time is, it's only 200 countries. You can learn the difference of it. And I think it's much better. And I now have ended up lecturing to the corporate sectors. And I tell all companies, you have too many wine knowers and too few world knowers in your company. That's what you really need. I heard at this philanthropy forum now, I thought it was Intel who were doing this. They were taking $100 people from the employees, they are sending them all out of the world to do community work and just live 1 year in different countries in the world and come back to enrich the capacity of the country to act in this modern world. And of course, I've done a very dangerous thing up to now. I've talked of country averages. Look, if I take Brazil here, and I split Brazil in its quintiles, the richest quintile, the richest 20% of Brazil are here. The poorest 20% of Brazil are there, flying just slightly above Eritrea. The nice things with graphics is you can learn it by heart. I know almost all of these bubbles. Just think, how many cell phone numbers do you know by heart? And how many faces do you know? You know, if you display your data much more in graphics, you will also remember it much easier. You know, and especially if you get a fixed way of displaying your data, and you change it every year, it's like a face getting old. You can Joachim can not only tell that this is Hans Rosling, can also tell the age of him from these different times when we meet every 10th year. so graphics is really forceful to use here, and I can split South Africa, I can split Uganda, and I can split Nigeria. We're so sad that they don't have real possibility to export their cotton as they would like. And you see that the difference within countries are really huge, really huge. So how shall we make the data available like this? Well, we are trying here at our web page to make, let me do it like this here. We have found out that we make it exploration here. If you go into Gapminder World, which I open here, you click on the axis. Here you have the different indicators, and you can choose the indicator. You can choose trade, for instance, here, and in trade you have trade balance, and you have to go back with trade balance to the 80s here. This is the trade balance 1980. Here is United States. Here is China. And what happened with it? This is negative trade balance. Going up is positive trade balance. And this is what happened. Ooh. The crisis didn't come as a surprise. You know? The crisis didn't come as a surprise. It was very easy to see that China goes up like this, US goes down like this. And it's quite good here to play around with this. But most people don't lean forward and click very much. We call that user group lean forward group. Many call them nerds. But we think lean forward is more polite. So then we have the video section, where you can look at videos. And that's much more successful. We've been quite surprised on what you can do if you do a good video and you put it there. For instance, if I would search on the internet, people say, internet is not serious. Do IFPRI publish your result on YouTube? You do that now? Yeah, you see, and if you go to, but people say they go to YouTube, you search on sex. People mostly search on sex there. You know? And money is also quite popular, and then health. What do you get if you search on sex, money, and health? I'm still on top. Out of 97 million hits. That's quite good, isn't it? For a man of my age to be on top on sex, money, and health. Of course, if you only go for sex, I have no chance. You know, I'm way down, way down. So I'll tell just a little in the end here about what you can do with. That's Swedish, but don't worry. This is beautiful music. It's Chopin, Nocturne of Chopin. Anyone here who can see that it's beautiful? Sometimes it's, yeah? Okay, we have one. There's about 1 in 500 I found when I lecture who can see that it's beautiful. And most of us need an instrument, and we need someone who plays the instrument. Then we hear that it's beautiful. I think statistic is like notes. It's not the beast. It's like composition. It's great people with care and professional skill have collected and compiled statistics, but it's not understandable. If I would have been standing here showing you musical notes, it wouldn't be popular. It wouldn't work. If Madonna would show the notes like this, it wouldn't work. You have to do something with them. And the good thing now is that there are these cheap instruments also, so you can play at home. You don't have to pay for this nasty bourgeoisie high-cost instrument any longer. So we need to be able to move on a little faster on this and to have it freely available. And this is actually the main problem I found. This you shouldn't do. I jumped wrong. Yeah, this is from my survey on Manhattan. I did a survey on Manhattan to see whether the sidewalks are free or not. I come up here from Wall Street station here, and I have my American experience. I was convinced there would be privatized sidewalks down on Wall Street. But to my great surprise, they were tax funded and free to walk on, And what I think is that we should have statistics should be the intellectual sidewalks. We spend $10 billion a year in the world to collect public statistics, direct cost. The indirect cost is probably more. So we are talking about $25 billion investment a year. And then we don't make good use of it. And those who collect statistics often get this disease. This is the second disease I discovered in my life. The first was CONSO, the second is DBHD. It's database hugging disorder. It's a personality disorder. And I thought it was congenital, but it's not. It's acquired. And it's acquired because being a statistician is a very tough job. You don't get recognition for what you do. You only get criticism when there's a mistake. And the way you get budget for collecting statistics is very haphazardly. And very few understand the skill and endurance and cost it takes to maintain databases and to keep them over the years. So we started up with a very stupid mission statement. We said converting boring statistics to enjoyable graphics. Now we say we unveil the beauty of statistics because the beauty is already there in the composition. And we need to give the data back to the world like this. And how would that happen? Well, it would happen probably in this way. You can see here, if I can get it to work. No, The data is underground. United Nations, national NGOs, I'm talking mainly on international data now. You have this great hunger index, which is becoming popular. But people would like to see hunger index together with education. They would like to compare it with trade. They would like to make them comparable. The value of a statistical number increases with comparability. If you get a unified format, then it increases. You read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it's 42, isn't it? It has no value, it's just 42. It can't be compared with anything. It's isolated. But if you can compare it, if you have prices on food over time, which you showed in one of your papers from here, which was an eye-opener. I was live in Swedish television reading your PDF and talking to the Swedes, about the reality of the food crisis. And showing that food had indeed been this costly, but long ago. These time series are enormously important. Now, we have the internet, and then we have small websites here. And they take the nutrition from the databases. This is more or less how it starts, And then many people put a price on them. If you go to Sheila Baidia and Eric Swanson at the World Bank, which are great statisticians and very skilled professionals, they put a price on world development indicators, although it's to 2/3 or more financed by tax money. These subsidized things being sold, it reminds me about the Soviet Union, how things were done. Very strange that World Bank and IMF and OECD handles data in the way Soviet Union handled products. Either it should be government or it should be free for competition, I think. You shouldn't have someone who is heavily subsidized and then sell it. I like economists who sell their data, but they compile it themselves. It's a private enterprise. But this subsidized is not efficient. They put this expense and then they have a password and then it's boring. This is how it has been. It doesn't work. This is what motivated us. So what is needed? Its design tools are already there. You can write design tools. You don't have to go into the basics, C+ or write it like that. access to data sets will spark this. So what we tried was to argue for a link here. And if we have this link, we put small data sets there, we put one data set, we animated it, but what we really want is confederated data sets that is uploaded in a unified format, and the owner still owns their data and they control their data. It should just be available in read-only format. You shouldn't give away your data. And you should have credit for all users. But it has to be searchable. And there should be many machines which are allowed to read the different data. Why did the search engines, Yahoo, AltaVista, Yahoo, Google, why did they succeed? Because everyone put their web pages up freely in HTML, unified format, free to use, and they could be copied every night. Many people still doesn't know what Google and Yahoo do, that every night they go into your web page, they copy it, they go into each PDF, they open the PDF, they copy the whole thing every night. And then they put it up for search. And why it's so fast to search? Because you don't search IFPRI's web page. You search the copy of IFPRI's web page on Google server and on Yahoo server. But then when they found it, they click, they come to your web page. And you like it because you get users that way. Someone looked for food prices and so on, and we ended up on your web page. We could do this with data, but data is in the hidden web. Data cannot be searched. And with the DBHD, people hide with their data like this, so no one can search it. It's very irrational, extremely. It's medieval, the way we handle data in relation to the capacities. But we don't have the unified format. We need the unified format for it, and we need to produce it in a way so that it gets into television. And my milestone is very clear. When Larry King Live stops having those ugly little small bubbles he's had behind himself for 15 years now, and show nice, beautiful, moving graphics that explains what he's talking about, then I've succeeded. So you will know when I'm satisfied. But it's sort of, there are obstacles to overcome to reach to that. But to my conclusion, the most important is competition. Fair competition which gives credit to the basic value and the value added. And thereby we could have databases being available, and then they can be searchable, they can be visualized in different formats, in different combinations, and then you can make videos talking with them, and you can make Larry King Live a little more interesting. That's more or less our idea. Thank you very much.